So welcome to our Spirit Gathering tonight. Today is September 18th. 19th. 2017. And this is Reverend Laura Smith. The topic of the call tonight is honoring the wisdom of stone. So thank you for joining us, and I'm really honored that the theme of the elementals and the mineral kingdom has called to so many people. We're recording the call, so that will be available in the archives afterwards. The agenda for the call tonight, I'll talk a little bit about some of the concepts around stones and crystals that have been coming to me synchronistically, and then we'll do a couple of guided exercises to allow. One is a kind of a transmission from the spirit of a stone circle in Cornwall that I visited recently, and another is an exercise with a small stone or crystal to get some personal guidance. So you'll want to have a stone or crystal that you can hold in your hand and a piece of paper to write on. All right, so let's take a moment to do our invocation and to come together in a group, enter into a deeper space of the sacred within ourselves. Let us imagine that we're joining together, sacred heart to sacred heart, with every other person on this call. Take a moment to feel this. Now let us imagine that we're joining together in a circle with a light or flame of fire in the center. Imagine a spoke of light coming from the center of the circle to your heart. And for each person on the call tonight or listening in after, now we are connected, sacred heart to sacred heart. Now let us set our intentions. We listen to one another with compassion and curiosity. We ask for what we need and offer what we can. We deepen our connection with one another and the divine. May this sharing serve us, our communities, and the planet. And so it is. Right. So I've been inspired to offer this reflection and transmission tonight by my recent travels over the summer to the sacred sites of southwest England, the areas of Devon and Cornwall. And I've always kind of had a connection to stones and crystals. I tend to travel to a place and come back with rocks in my suitcase, and I have a lot of crystals and so on. So this is kind of an ongoing source of guidance for me. But I was really touched by my experiences on the sacred sites in England this summer, and it really resonated with me in the weeks since I've come back. I was there in early August, and it seemed to really be an energy that I was continuing to work with and that wanted to come forward to share itself with the larger community. So it's in this spirit that I offer this transmission tonight. And so among the places that I went to were the Tor and the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, a sacred pagan waterfall that's a sacred fairy place in Cornwall, and a ancient stone circle and a tor, a rock formation in Cornwall. And so these are the resonances that will be coming forward tonight. So in the weeks that followed, I've been kind of contemplating these themes, and some information from different sources has come to me synchronistically that kind of builds on these themes. So I'll share a few of these concepts to kind of enrich our space, and then we'll go into the processes. So the sites that I visited, a lot of this kind of Neolithic sites in Britain are dating from at least 4000 BC, and as you know, these sites are all over the world. They hold a lot of energy. They tend to be built on ley lines or energy points on the planet, and there's a very convincing evidence that they go back to some kind of an ancient civilization, maybe Atlantis or something like that, some kind of, antediluvian culture that was very, very advanced in a certain kind of natural technology. And so one of the concepts that kind of comes forward is that, I'll just say first that these lines in England, there's a famous ley line that runs across the bottom part of England, kind of up the peninsula of Cornwall, and this is where the sites of Stonehenge and Avebury are located, and where these circles that I visited are located. They're also the site of the crop circle formations that are so famous, and so this seems to be part of the energy in the place, the kind of electromagnetic energy. There's earth currents, there's water under the ground, and so there's some kind of an energy current that's supporting this. So one of the principles is that stones hold memory, and so they're a kind of a living library of ancestral information about humanity's past and other kinds of cosmic knowledge. And there's a wonderful book that's a collection of channelings from the standing stones in Brittany, which is on the same ley line in France, but the Karnak group of stones. And these messages that were recorded by Natasha Hoffman and Hamilton Hill, they were dowsers and kind of channelers. They spent time among these stones and downloaded these transmissions. And so the messages speak about the times of Atlantis, the knowledge of crystal that was held then. The Atlanteans were well aware of the properties of crystal to hold and transmit thought energy. And, Edgar Casey, from another direction, as many people know, spoke a lot about the Atlantean technology of large healing crystals that transmitted vibration throughout the whole continent of Atlantis. So this is one of the keys to working with the Stone Kingdom, that they are holding and transmitting this library of cosmic information, and it seems to be the electromagnetic properties that are the mechanism by which that comes about. And so the next principle, which is related, is that crystal and rock, certain types, especially granite, which is largely made of quartz, hold or can be programmed with thought and consciousness. And of course, we're familiar with this in the new age of, kind of using crystals and energizing crystals and so on. But there's a very technical aspect to it as well. And one of the fascinating researchers is Marcel Vogel, who invented Vogel crystals. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. But he was an engineer with IBM for 20 years or something. So, mainstream scientist. But he studied crystal, and he proved scientifically in his laboratory that the thought energy in crystal could be transmitted to change matter. And so he had a solution of silicate in water, and he had a control bowl and then a bowl that he energized with the crystal. And the bowl that he energized with the crystal kind of precipitated a seed crystal that turned the bowl into quartz crystals. The other bowl just remained as a kind of a goo, a solution that didn't crystallize. So the difference was the thought energy in the crystal. So this is kind of hardcore scientific evidence. So that brings it down to kind of the material world. And we're familiar in the last few years with Dr. Emoto's experiments with the water crystals, using the power of intention to form different geometric shapes. And of course, what we learn is that the more harmonized intentions create beautiful symmetrical geometries, and the unharmonized thoughts don't. Okay, so crystal and rock can be programmed with consciousness, and that, of course, is one of the ways that we can use them for spiritual development. So the next principle, as we've been building up here, is that a medium is electromagnetic. And this is perhaps a really good key for interfacing with the human body. And to me, it kind of makes it very practical, kind of very real. And so one of the really interesting researchers along these lines is Michael Tellinger, who many of you may have heard of. If you haven't, I really urge you to look up his work. He has a lot of interviews on YouTube. But he is a South African researcher, and he discovered all over South Africa these stone formations that were not explained by archaeology. And what he's shown with research is that these were actually energy-generating devices that predate their very, very ancient, maybe going back to a kind of a post-Atlantean culture. And they seem to be using cymatics, the power of sound, which is amplified through these geometric forms from the earth. And he's measured this with instruments. It's a fascinating, fascinating body of work, and it's absolutely revolutionary. It just changes the whole understanding of kind of ancient history, but of course mainstream academia hasn't quite adjusted to that yet. So there's a lot to his theory. I can't do more than just touch on it here, but it's really fascinating work. And so he's introducing the idea of sound as part of this kind of, energetic spectrum. And he's also measured the fact that the stone circle will create a kind of electromagnetic bubble that operates a little bit like a Faraday cage. It will insulate from electromagnetic frequencies outside, so that in very practical terms, inside these circles, people were not able to get cell phone service because this was acting as a kind of a shield. So all of these kind of electromagnetic principles then, I think, help us to understand how the crystal is interfacing with the human energy field. And so when we come to think about the human body, we can recall the fact that the heart is really a magnetic field, kind of a torus field of energy. People like Dan Winter and the Heart Math Institute have demonstrated this. And it's really through this interface that we're interfacing with the electromagnetics of the stone. So the human energy system is an electromagnetic field. And so breath and pulsing the breath is one of the techniques for activating that electromagnetic charge. And a lot of the techniques that Vogel uses and so on use this pulsing of the breath. And of course, this is found in Taoism and yoga, pranayama, and other meditational techniques. But there's an electromagnetic charge that's being generated there. One last idea to throw in there is this idea of polarities, kind of positive, negative, or male, female. This shows up in a kind of symbolic or archetypal way as masculine, feminine, but on another level, these are electrical principles, and a lot of the ancient cultures were familiar with that. In Britain, you have this idea of the Tor, the kind of masculine rocky outcrop, and then a sacred well or a sacred spring being the kind of negative polarity or the feminine. You also find this idea in Peru very widely, this idea of kind of masculine, feminine polarities in the land. Okay, so all of that is some very interesting background, and I've been fascinated by kind of learning more about this and pursuing these different directions. So I kind of offer that as some background to get us started. So we'll go into the transmissions, and then later, at the end, we'll open up the floor for comments, experiences, sharing, and so on. I want to make sure that we have time to do the processes, so I'll dive right into it. So we can switch gears a little bit here to our transmission from the sacred sites, sacred land, and this will be a journey and transmission to the stone circle in Cornwall. And so you can get settled for this meditation. Bring your posture into an aligned and relaxed position for the next few minutes. And take some deep breaths and begin to bring your mind into a place of stillness. The devas of the place support this transmission. The place wishes to give a blessing to you. The setting is the Bodmin Moor in Cornwall. As far as the eye can see, there are only hills with meadow grass. The ground is marshy, moist under the feet. You suddenly come upon a group of standing stones in a circle, perhaps 10 yards across. There are perhaps 10 to 15 stones spaced along this perimeter. The sky above is clear blue. You approach the gateway stones and give your greeting, asking permission to enter. The stones are two leaning together. They're about 3 feet tall, leaning towards each other. They're sitting in a little pool of water that is formed in front of them that reflects the sky. Gaze into the pool. What do you see, hear, and feel? Take a moment to do this. I will hold this space of transmission. Now entering the circle, walk slowly, clockwise, around the perimeter. Every few feet there is a stone, standing about 3 feet tall. Each one has its own shape and character. Take a few minutes to walk the perimeter of the circle, to greet the stones, listening to the wisdom that they have to share with you. Having completed this round of the circle, walk slowly to the center. There is a white quartz stone embedded in the center of the circle, perhaps 1 foot square. It's flush with the ground. It's been there for thousands of years. It's bright white. made of quartzite. Gaze upon this central stone and give your greetings to it. Now look up to the horizon. You will see in the distance a rocky outcrop with 2 stone peaks. This is the Rough Tor, the highest point in the area, and it's linked energetically to this circle on the same ley line. Give your greetings to Rough Tor and ask for guidance and blessings. Receive the wisdom that this majestic presence has for you. And receive the healing transmissions. Take a moment to do this. Now slowly standing up, give thanks for the energy and wisdom you have received. Walk clockwise, slowly to the entrance stones by which you entered the circle. And take your leave of the circle, thanking the presences there. And knowing that you can return to this place. Take a few moments to complete, and when you're ready, come back to ordinary space and time. And when you're somewhat back, you can just say here or something so I'll know when everyone is ready for the next.
I'm here.
Here. Here. Here. Here. All right. So we have most people responding. If you're still in process, then you can segue into the next exercise. So for this exercise, you'll want a paper and pen and your crystal or stone that you can hold in your hand. And you'll have an opportunity to ask the stone for some guidance. So think of a question that you would like to ask the stone and write it on your piece of paper. We'll give you a moment to do that. And when you've written it, then fold the paper in half and place it to the side. Okay, has everyone got your question written down? Take a moment and invoke the deva of your crystal or stone and whatever other entities, guides, energies come forward, maybe Archangel Michael, the Archangel of Stone, any other guides and masters that are called. And take a few deep breaths in and out to come into a deeper space. Now take your crystal or stone in your hands. And close your eyes. Feel the texture of the stone with your hands. Feel all the surfaces. Just being with your sensation. Letting that be new. And what stands out to you? Take a few moments to do this. Feel texture of the stone. And now, bring the stone to your nose and smell it. What do you notice? What does that smell like? And now, if you like, take your tongue and touch it to your stone and taste it. What is that like? What flavors, what words come to mind? Maybe something unexpected. And now, open your eyes and look at your stone. Turn it over, holding it in the light, looking at each surface. What shapes do you see? What shadows? Do you see any faces, landscapes, any figures? And take a few moments to explore that. And when you're complete, you can thank the stone, thank the deva of the stone, thank the overlighting masters and archangels for this information, this wisdom. And then take your paper and make some notes. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right. And so you can shake your body out a little bit and come back into ordinary reality. And we'll open the floor for sharing any experiences you had in either of the journeys, any personal experiences with stone, anything you'd like to offer to our gathering here tonight.
Hi, Laura. It's Stacy.
Hi.
Hi. So, rocks have been a big thing in my life since 4th grade. We walked to my classmate's father's house, and her father had a field trip where we all got to go and see his rock collection when I was in 4th grade. And he turned on the black light, and half of them glowed in the black light. And ever since then, I've been addicted to rocks. So for this meditation, and I've been to Avebury Circle and Stonehenge, and totally, I've never been to Cornwall, but I want to go there. So the rock I used tonight, my family went to Maui when I was 12, and I didn't know that it was against the rules to take a rock from the volcano at Haleakala, and I was possessed, and I brought it home with me, and I still have it. So I used that tonight, and I've had it all this time, and recently I just brought it into the house. I used to always have it in my garden. So I was very surprised to hear what it had to tell me after all this time. And it's the connection to Mother Earth and the volcanic fire in my belly and the hot. I can be a little hot and ever-changing. And when I smelled it, it still smells like fire, which was unbelievable to me. And it tastes like the salt in the earth. And when I looked at it, even though it's a piece of black volcanic rock, it simultaneously looks like a lamb and like kind of like a dinosaur, like the head of some kind of a dinosaur. So I just thought all that was amazing. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else like to share?
This is Teresa Jane. I used a lava rock as well. It's a stone that I use in my healing practice under my massage table. And I have different stones that represent the different chakras that I just call them my helpers. And I hadn't had a real strong connection with this one. And this was, I connected to the first chakra. So I hadn't really investigated it with all my senses before. So that was a lovely opportunity. And I was, the things that it told me that I didn't know about it was that it very much basically it's about creativity and just while I was holding it, I felt very interesting and delicate contours that I hadn't really appreciated before. And it had sort of a powdery surface that reminded me of disintegration, even though it's a very old stone. The surface sort of is disintegrating as the structure stays constant. And the smell was very earthy and it smelled really good to me. And the taste seemed familiar and a little bit metallic, but I noticed sort of a sensuality to it. like I could feel my tongue have interesting sensations as I tasted it. And I definitely see faces that I hadn't seen before, and multiple shades of brown and gray and red that just feel like a little planet. And the question I had asked was what qualities it brings for my healing practice. And with my clients, I tend to do disintegration and reintegration to help to be more authentic in who we truly are. And so it felt like a really strong foothold for and like a grounding stone for those things to happen in my practice. So I came away with a deep appreciation for this stone that I had just been sort of taking for granted. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Beautiful. Anyone else like to share?
Hi, this is Nancy. I returned a couple weeks ago from a wonderful place right off of Route 80 near the Delaware Water Gap called Columcille. And many decades ago, a Presbyterian minister went to Columcille in Ireland, in Iona, and he came back, and over the many years, he has recreated a standing stone circle and built stone chapels and just beautiful cairns in the woods. It's called Columcille, and it's open to the public. It's a wonderful park in the woodlands, and if anyone is ever near the Delaware Water Gap, Columcille is in a tiny town called Bangor, Pennsylvania, and I just had a wonderful communion with the stones there and thought others might be able to come to a place a bit closer to home.
Great. Thank you for sharing. It sounds fascinating.
You can check it out online. I think you'll like it.
Great.
This is Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Hi. I'm working with a new stone. It's a malachite, and it's perfectly, well, I wouldn't say perfectly, but it's round, and has just beautiful coloring to it. And I like the way you took us through the introduction to the stone, because I'm just getting familiar with it and holding it, and it was interesting to smell it, because I never would have thought of doing that, and finding it did have this kind of earthy smell, and that it was very pleasant. And the same thing with taste, that there was kind of a bitterness to it, but it was a nice bitter. And so it just, I don't have a lot of words for, what it communicates to me, but I just feel like there's some kind of resonance or transmission that does happen. And it's kind of fascinating to me. So I like the topic that you picked. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right, great. So we could start to bring our gathering to a close. And I want to say that if anyone would like a photo of the entry stone to the Standing Circle in Cornwall, I'd be happy to email you that image. So I'll give you my email in case you want to contact me. So it's LS as in Suzanne, U, SMITH. So LSU Smith at MSN.com. That's my email, and you can just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to send you that photo, which that has a little pool of water in front of the stone, which I find quite energized. Great. So I also encourage you, if you're not familiar with Michael Tellinger's work or some of these other sources, again, this book is called The Standing Stone Speak by Natasha Hoffman and Hamilton Hill. It's a lovely compilation of their transmissions that they channeled. Marcel Vogel, there's a lot of material on YouTube now. He didn't publish very much. It's kind of hard to find information about him, but I discovered some kind of whole workshops that are posted there. So that's kind of a treasure. He gets very technical about some of the properties of crystals, so it's hard to find that kind of information. So thank you for joining me tonight to share this exploration. And thank you for joining us for this Spirit Gathering teleconference. The call may be archived as an MP3 at www.tzaddi.org, so you can access the replay online. And the phone access to the recording is 712-432-1085. The access code is 990-322#. So our next Spirit Gathering is scheduled for Tuesday, October 17th, and Teresa Jane will be leading that call, and she's asked me to invite anyone who would like to come forward as a space holder to contact us. So let us know if you would like to hold space for that call. These calls are hosted by Tzaddi, an inner spiritual metaphysical organization Founded in California in 1964, Tzaddi welcomes, nurtures, and supports people in celebrating and more directly experiencing their relationship with the loving presence of the divine. Our programs are open to people of any race, color, or national or ethnic origin. Visit www.tzaddi.org to learn more. We'll close now with thanks and a blessing. Thanks to Tzaddi founders Amy Keys and Dorothy Blackmere. Thanks to all of you who have been a part of our community tonight. And thanks to the divine who supports us always, even when we are not aware of it. And as a blessing, I have a little statement from the book, The Standing Stones Speak. So the message from the stones is that so that the wounds of the human heart caused by past misinterpretation of the truths of creation may be healed, and the intuitive mind may be reawakened to the real function of human life, the opening of the heart to the harmonies of the cosmos. So that's a message from the Archangel of Stone. And I would add to bear in mind that the heart is an electromagnetic vortex. And taken in this light, the image has a technical meaning as well as a symbolic one. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.